Okay. See the big old.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Let's do that.
Alrighty. Okay. I think we got going on multiple platforms now. Hello, how's everybody doing? Shalom, shalom to everybody. Well, get ready to go into our next day. Thank you, everybody. We're going to do a special session real quick. May the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect today's message. Amen. Thank you for being on with us. We are over servants of Christ, but we're always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice in the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thanks for joining us on multiple platforms. Hello, Denise. How's everybody doing? We give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all honor and praise to my wife, the Honorable Amma, who's with us today in our special session, which we try to do every last Sunday of each month. And so we got it recorded. We got this on the playlist as well. So if you go looking for YouTube, you should be able to find this as well. And so we're thankful and grateful. Maybe we'll put this on Patreon as well, even though it's on YouTube. Maybe we'll put it on there in case people want to find it there at another time as well. But thank you for joining us. Hello, not only Sister Denise, but Big Brother Thomas, Sister Lori, Sister Sharice, Brother Nubis, Nay, thanks for being on. Tree by Living Water, Brother Clem, Sister wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought they said something else. Brother Alton, Sister Deborah, hello, Shalom. Art Carter, hello. I'm sorry, I'm having a moment. Brother Vincent, there we go. We're doing well. Thanks, Big Brother Thomas. Up. Shay Ben Yehuda, all right. Shalom to everybody. Peace be upon everybody. Bounty, how you doing? So thank you, everybody, for being on. We won't be before you extremely long, but we want to take time out to do this special session that we do once again every last Sunday. We will bring the Honorable Amma on to speak with us. And so we were going to talk about today that relationships come with conflict. Hello, how you doing? Okay, you're new here. We're welcome. Hopefully you like what you hear. And we're on every day at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time, every weekday at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, except for Wednesdays. Wednesdays is our day off. Usually it's mostly myself, but however, we are blessed once again every last Sunday. We come on live on a special session, so we're thankful and grateful. How you doing? Yeah, hey, how you doing, Brother Jermaine? We're thankful and grateful to everybody for being on. We appreciate you. So once again, today we wanted to talk about tonight, real quick, we want to talk about relationships come with conflict. And so I'll kind of turn it over to my wife to kind of get us started a little bit with the context of the conversation.
Yeah, I think we all deal with people not on the level that, life comes with problems, life comes with conflicts, but we have some weird expectation that life and therefore relationships will somehow be perfect when we're all flawed, flawed individuals that are, born in iniquity, born in sin. And so why would we think that people are ever going to be perfect, that they're not ever going to let us down, when really the probability that they will let us down is very high, because, people can barely meet their own expectations, let alone those of others. But we somehow have this very unrealistic expectation of perfection at any point in time, that, complete consistency, no variability whenever we're dealing with human beings. And if we want, a complete and always consistent relationship, that's only going to be with the Most High, ever. It's never going to be with the human. And I love what you say about forgiveness, how you have to do it before someone even lets you down, before someone needs to even be forgiven. It's kind of like project management 101, where you realize that there are risks involved in anything that you do in life, and that you have to take, precautions. You have to be prepared and mitigate the problem before it arises, or at least have a solution that will kind of ease the burden of it, because people are going to let you down. So if you're already prepared to forgive them, you can maybe approach a situation with more love and more understanding, and give yourself um, some slack or leeway to be human as well.
Yeah, and yeah. So one of the things. I'm sorry, hold on. Turn it up just a little bit, but that we don't have to hear everything, sir. Okay, go ahead, sit back. Go ahead, sit back. All right. You see, we're all in the vehicle as a family right now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and hello, Minister Tamara, and there were a couple people that came on. Hello, shalom to everybody. Peace be upon everybody. And it's important to get that part of it. That saying that my wife's talking about, where you forgive. To forgive literally means before somebody does it, you give them the right to do it. And one of the things that we've been talking about more and more, and that's been coming up, Holy Spirit of our couple Dash has been bringing up over and over again, is we keep hearing over and over that, like, we think that marriage is, like my wife was saying, we think that marriage is between perfect people. We say it's not, though. That's which is the odd thing. We'll admit neither one of us coming into this is perfect, right? But then you get two people that come together and we demand nothing less than perfection, which doesn't make sense. It's cognitive dissonance.
Or else you're settling.
Or else we're settling.
So, like, if you don't get perfection, then you're settled. Like, you have this, like, especially I know women have a whole list of, like, guidelines. And even in any relationship, we come into it not allowing people to be human, not allowing for them to be fallible and make mistakes.
Yeah. And so we had this thing that we go on each other where it's like these are, and sometimes they're even unsaid or unwritten, unspoken, not vision oriented. Like, we come in and it's just like, oh yeah. Especially a lot of times too, we be honest, we come from a dating mentality, right? Which is not biblical. So dating, there's rules in dating that you're not really supposed to show who you really are. And then you get in relationships. And what happens is, it's interesting, because what happens is you keep dating people, and what you've been taught is, as you date people, you'll actually sleep with people and talk to people. You'll meet people's parents and stuff, and yet you go and you're not even with the person. Like, there's a large part of your life where still it's like it's dated. We're not thinking about past the date. We're not thinking about past what the next meeting is. We're just like, okay, yeah, we make each other feel great and this and that, but there's no long-term sometimes goals. It's like, okay, we've been together enough. Okay, we have some kind of emotional tie, or even soul tie, because we're sleeping together, which is marriage, but at the same time we don't really want to be married. So it's like we had this weird, but we bring the same vibe into an actual marriage, which is like, so and we give more slack sometimes to the person we're dating, who's not going to be with us forever, than we do with the person that says, I'm all in.
That's a great point. Actually, my mentor was discussing relationships and marriage, and in a conversation that he had with his wife, that you treat the memory of the men that you dated before me better than you treat me, and I made you my wife, and what do they make you?
I mean, that's actually a huge point. That's a huge way. I've heard a lot of men say that, but not in that regard. But that's actually a really, about time.
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't, because he's not. Well, anyway. Yeah. So, but that's a huge thing. Like, that a huge way of putting it, because that's very true. Like, a lot of men feel like that. Like, well, I went out with so and so used to do this and blah blah, and we sitting there like I'm a decade, 2 decades in with you.
So it's like, where is so and so?
Yeah, so and so. I mean, unless you still see so and so on the side, they taking care of bills that I'm not aware of, which we need to have another conversation then. But you get a whole another side of men. But it really well, like, we're gonna be doing this for a while. So, like, for like men, we always talk about men, are people that like respect. Or our number one need as men usually is what? Respect. And the number one need for a woman is usually what? Security. And so he feels like he needs to be respected because he's providing security. If he feels like he doesn't get it, but it causes conflict. Once again, you have two people that are very different people, and not every woman gets security in the same regard. I comprehend that. We should definitely comprehend and understand that. So we're here to give you some tools that should help across the board. And our board, so to speak, doesn't look like yours all the time, right? You know, like what my wife needs for security is not going to be what every wife requires. We know that, so we want to put that out there, right? That we're not saying that this is a carbon copy type thing or whatever, but at the same time, there are certain principles that go across the board. And
exactly. There are certain principles that go across the board of any relationship, you know, be it you with your mother or your father, your sister, your brother. You know, we're all humans. We all have certain basic human needs that, and we also come with like our own histories and expectations, letdowns where people have like hurt us and traumas, and we don't take any of that into account. We just take into account our own expectations and what we feel this person should be living up to and haven't lived up to. And sometimes we can't even live up to our own expectations. Like we have such high standards of what somebody else should be bringing to the table that we couldn't even bring it to the table ourselves.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've been talking about as the Holy Spirit's been bringing up, and thank you for the love, appreciate it. One of the things that's been happening on a regular basis is that we've been talking about how, once again, people expect two perfect people or something that's going to never break down. The reality is and I'm going to ask it in a question because I want us to think about it tonight as a whole, as a family unit. You know, what if instead of you connecting with somebody that will never make a mistake, what if you have decided to dedicate yourself to somebody that will make mistakes until the day that you both die? Right? That's like, we don't put that in the vows, but we say, you know, till death do us part, sickness and health, better and worse, richer for poor. But we should probably sneak somewhere in there.
That's good.
That I'm dedicated to you. Now watch this. It's not that you're going to make the same mistakes. And that is a salah moment, right? It's not that you're going to make the same mistakes. I'm depending on you, right? But it's really two people that need to get themselves together. And we've decided we're going to stick with each other. And this process probably helps you with the whole 80-20 thing that pops up when people get messed up with other people that come in around your relationships. You know why? Because you might find somebody that watch this. What if you find somebody that's 90% there and your spouse is only 80%? Doesn't matter. I've dedicated myself to the reward of watching you become 100% of what you're supposed to become. So, you know, and prayerfully you ain't marrying somebody that's only 10%, but maybe you did. If you did, you dedicated yourself to you only 10%, but I'm going to walk with you. And my reward is every time I see you go up a little percent. And sometimes we'd be like, ooh, when you get to 50, I'm gonna be so happy. No, what if you go from 10% to 10.1? I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for us. Yeah, it's progress, right? And people don't want to look at it like that, but as long as you both shall live. What if y'all both live to be 120 and you get married at 20? That's 100 years of every day. I'm waiting to see you get perfect or perfected. I'm waiting to see you get more mature. I'm waiting for you to learn more things. Watch this. I'm waiting for you to grow, which means that you might start doing some things that I never thought. We get messed up in that. We get caught up in change. Oh, you're changing. Well, yeah. What if you met them and they weren't even fully aware of their purpose, their calling? Now they start doing their calling and you realize, oh, this is what your calling really meant. Well, I'm dedicated. I'm all in. You're right. And if you're getting to your purpose, it means that we're getting to our purpose. If you're getting to your purpose, it means we're getting to Yahweh's purpose. If we're getting to your purpose and the kingdom of heaven is in you, just like it's in me, that means that I'm going to experience more heaven because of whatever. So I'm ready to make this turn. Now, I'm not talking about somebody doing something outside the will of Yah. Right? Amen. That's another salah, right, Sheena? You know, but that's truth, you know. And I'm welcome to everybody. But yeah, you want to jump in there before I get too involved in that?
Well, you said something that really stood out to me in terms of expecting change, and like we don't expect change. I don't know why. Everything in life changes. You know, there's always a transition. There's always things that happen, but we somehow don't expect reality. We don't prepare for, and it's weird because we do it in every other situation where we prepare ourselves for difficult situations. We prepare ourselves for change. We prepare ourselves for for conflict that may arise, but not in relationships for whatever reason. And maybe it's because we get our emotions too wrapped up, and we're coming in it not submitted to a mission, but really into mansion or some woman, whatever you want to call it, like or and we're looking to a person to fulfill some type of need for us that they probably could never fill. We just don't come in with realistic expectations at all. And I thought, when you said something about the transitions and changes in life and not expecting them, that really stood out to me.
Yeah, and it's it's conflicts. Like instead of like what happens is something happens and we become conflicted versus like, or watch it, instead of looking for always, like, because a lot of us do this. My hand raised, you get in the argument, whatever, we get in the argument, and I'm looking to call out all the conflicts, right? But and no offense, but it's just vice versa. I'm talking about a mirror thing. Whatever I'm saying about you right now, I'm saying about myself. Like, real talk, I married a conflicted person, and she married a conflicted person. Yeah. So if I'm conflicted already, I come with conflict.
You told me something beautiful when we got together, because I was convinced that I was not interested in pursuing any type of relationship, because I felt like I was flawed and that I needed to work on my flaws before I got into any type of relationship. And you said, why don't we work on them together? And that was like one of the most realistic things, because I'll never be perfect. I'll always have issues to work on. And if if I had gotten with somebody who wanted to run from those problems, I would be alone again and back to square one, working on my problems. Whereas you took my hand, you said, let's work on these together. Like, if you feel like you have something you work on, I'll be here with you to work through it.
Yeah, because we're conflicted people. And like you're coming into a relationship with somebody. Like, I mean, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to speak negative, right? We just came out of affirmations, but we speak the affirmations. Why? To affirm, like, sometimes even the things that aren't there yet. Speak those things that aren't as if they were. Right? What you say? You said, that's love, that's partnership, that's helpmate, that's covenant. Yeah, amen. And really, you deserve somebody who wants to deal with a conflicted soul, right? Like, there are people out there who are tormented souls. Somebody needs them. Like, there's people, like, now I've changed. There used to be part of me that used to say something like, I've told the story before that I was, trying to see if somebody was marriage material, and she was one of the women that everybody says you can be with, where, you jump and say how high, and she would have done whatever I said, and it got annoying to me. But I've started having to realize the Holy Spirit had to temper that some, and had to say, well, she was dealing with different stuff, and you weren't prepared. You weren't the person strong enough, or maybe you just weren't the person compatible with her to be able to help her out of that. So before you go into a place of always, in a sense, downing that person, just realize you probably weren't able to deal with that conflict. And if she finds somebody, your prayer should be not that because you're done with that, right? But your prayer should be, she finds somebody who can deal with that conflict. And when I got challenged on that, I said, amen. Like, the Holy Spirit was absolutely right. Because you think about it like, oh yeah, this person wasn't this, and this person. It's like, well, was I strong enough? Like, instead of being annoyed by it, did I look at, okay, this is what this, and we don't do this, right? We were just joking about, in like the Alexandria, Virginia area, or the Fairfax County area, they used to have something. We both went to high school, same area, and they used to have this thing called conflict mediation. And I said, we used to laugh and joke about it, but the song still sticks in my head. I was literally telling my wife I could remember the jingle that they had. And then all these different things that were going on, like, like there was a lot of stuff as far as like, they were trying to get you, even in the high school level, to realize, like, stop worrying about different things or whatever, like, go ahead and deal with, your conflict or whatever, like conflict. And be able to mediate based on the conflict. Like, we're supposed to have conflict, not just even in marriage, although that's a huge part of life, or physical relationships, if you want to call them your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. We try to get away from dating and be in marriage mode. However, like, conflict. And really what started to help me too is I realized that I have conflict. I'm not going to give you guys our business, but there was a possibility of us really getting into something because of something I said right before we left. I won't say the details of it, right? But basically, I realized that I was wrong, and so I still didn't handle it 100% the way I should have. But I voiced to my wife. I told her like, "Hey, something popped in my head, and it reminded me of something that really had nothing to do with the situation, but I was putting that in here, right?" So I got quiet, and I thought wrong, by the way, but I thought that she was thinking a certain thing because I was being quiet. So I told her what I was thinking, because I wanted her to know. And then I had to explain myself still, right? But I had to say, like, hey, I'm dealing with something because I'm conflicted about something. I know it's my issue, and really because words of affirmation is my love language. So I was reminded by something she said of a word that was said a long time ago, and I tried to put the two together, and I had to get quiet because I realized that was my issue. I'm conflicted, right? So I had to realize I'm a conflicted person. I come with conflict. And so if I'm not aware of that, then that conflict's going to become affliction. It's going to like mess with us. So I had to deal with something real quick. I had to turn it off. I had to say, okay, I come with this. I know I come with this. I know this isn't what she's talking about. I know that's not what she means. We're about to have a grand family time, which we did. As our family did, we had a great time. We even accidentally went to a place that was even better than what I thought it was going to be, right? So, we did swimming, we did things that were promised to Solomon earlier in the week. He was able to experience, and different things like that. But I had to get rid of the conflict first, or it would have been it could have turned into a day where we were together, but we was just kind of like checking off boxes, versus we were together, hands held, talking, joking, swimming, jovial, spending time together, breaking bread. Something like that small, if I hadn't recognized that I have conflict in myself, I could have ruined the day.
Well, and I understand. I tried to understand, or at least put myself in a position and have some empathy as well for things that came out of my mouth, because um, I guess we as women don't realize how powerful we are in the things that we say, and how some of the things we say can stick with a person. I mean, I think women are like very crafty with their tongue, very crafty with their mouth in general. Excuse me. And know exactly what to say to get under someone's skin. And sometimes we know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, but that's not what you were doing earlier.
Well, maybe not today, but but we as women, have to realize how powerful our tongues are. Well, that sounds weird. Especially when it comes to, what's wrong with me? I don't know. Especially when it comes to our husbands. I mean, in any relationship we have with our mother, our father, our sister, our brother, like, I think women have a way with words that can be very can be used for good or used for evil, and can be very good on either very good as a weapon, or very good as a tool. But especially with our husbands, because we take on that position, just as it says in um, Genesis 2:24, and therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife. When you take on that position, you take on such a mighty role in someone's life, and in your husband's life, to where you can speak life or death over him. And if you're going to use the same mouth that you use to speak life over him, you can't speak death over him with the same mouth. It's like when people say, "Oh, you be cursing," and people be like, "Oh, you kiss your mother with that same mouth," and it's like, you kiss your husband with that same mouth. Like, how can you trust it if on one hand you're good, on the other hand you're evil? Like, which one wins out? Which one should he trust? After a while.
Yeah, it was very true. Like, it'll be like, why aren't you listening to me now? It's like, well, I hear you. Well, didn't you hear that I just said that you're great and you do this and stuff like that? It's like, yeah, but if we're gonna fight, if we usually, and this is where conflict is coming, if we don't handle conflict very well. Well, if it's like, if I'm great when there's no conflict, but then when conflict shows up, I'm no longer great, then I don't believe you, because I know I'm conflicted. So I know we're going to have conflict again. But vice versa, we also do it in the same way. We do it to our wives. We do it to our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, etc. We sit up there and I like the way Eric Thomas said it once. He was talking about, and you like the way he said it too. I'm trying to remember the exact one because I know we watched this one together, and I know you reacted to it well. So I'm trying to make sure I remember the exact one. I think is the one he was talking about his wife, and he said that his wife, does a lot of stuff or whatever, has to, but his wife doesn't check his pockets when she does laundry. So he said because his wife doesn't check the laundry often when she does, or check his pockets when he does laundry, he'll leave his wallet in his pocket sometimes. And so she'll wash his wallet. Every time she does that, everything in his wallet just about is ruined. Like if there's money in there, different things, if there's paperwork, receipts, sometimes business cards, whatever. Sometimes even maybe stuff that's got to be, swiped or whatever, right? Depending. Sometimes it's ruined. So he'll get frustrated, right? And then she'll just be like, okay. She'll leave it alone, right? She'll be like, okay. And then he'll come home after a long trip or something. And then she'll be like, what's up? And he'd be like, what you mean, what's up? And she'd be like, what? Well, she's like, the house is clean. Food that you like to be cooked is cooked. She was like, your stuff is putting, like, she's very big about things being put away. So she's like, I got your certificates and everything in different drawers. You can find them in file cabinets and all that. Matter of fact, he doesn't even know what file cabinets are going in his house for information. He has to ask his wife. That sounds like me. But he's like, she's like, yeah, all this stuff is together. She's like, I need that same energy. You was mad at me. You was frustrated about the wallet. Like, I need you to come in when you see the house is clear. I need you to say, hey, like, the house is clear. I need you. You yelled at me about the wallet, so I need you to jump for joy when you see that the house is clean.
Yeah.
Real talk.
We typically don't come with the same energy. Like, I think about that often when it's time to leave a review for something, and how quick I am to want to leave a negative review if something goes wrong. But when things are, go right, even like if they exceed expectations, if they're just like over the top.com, then I want to say something to the manager. I want to leave a review. But if the littlest thing goes wrong, I'm ready to leave a negative feedback, and I'm like, let me just calm myself. First of all, it doesn't require that much energy or mind space. I don't need to be putting that much energy towards some little thing. Let it go. But why don't I come with the same energy when things go right? If things go as expected, why don't I come with the same energy to leave a positive review? And I guess it's it's the same type of situation in a relationship where things are going normal and things are going well, like you're living a good life, but instead of saying appreciating all the blessings and all the things, you're taking that for granted. But if the littlest thing goes wrong, you're ready to, like, well, I know I'm ready to jump up and leave a negative review.
Yeah. And it's so it's like realizing the conflict, but also when there's lack of conflict, and I think what's the term, even keel. Like if you were to react, like, watch this, if it's death do us part, and if we end this until death do us part, and we're supposed to live together.
And Claire, this will be on YouTube. It's on YouTube right now, actually.
Okay, amen. So if these are the things that need to be happening, nonstop, if these are the things that need to be happening, and we're with the same person, like, watch this, unless it's something, obviously there's things that are crucial, obviously there's betrayal and levels of different things, right? So we're not talking about that, right? That's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole different type of conflict. Maybe we can talk about that if y'all want to bring that up, but I mean, obviously there's levels to it, right? But if something bad happens, at the end of the day, like, we're going to be together. Like, if we mad at it, like I've said this before, even if I don't like myself, I have to love my wife. Even if, let's be honest, if I find like in a moment in time I don't like my wife, I still have to love my wife. Love is the action. Like, so even if we're not getting along, I don't get to just get to be like, when she comes talking about, hey Kofi, we got to pay this bill, that bill, I don't get to be like, oh well, you know what, whatever, I don't like you right now. So like, or we were listening to somebody and she was talking about how she was upset with her husband, and it's something I never even thought about because I don't think I've ever done it, but she was talking about how, like, she was upset with her husband, so she said she didn't pray for him.
Oh yeah.
And she loves to pray for him. She knows as her role, she wants to cover him. Like, nobody's gonna cover your foundation, like, you gonna cover it, right? But she was mad at him, so she just like, and she still prayed for him, but she said, like, it crossed her mind, and the second it crossed her mind, she was like, whoa, like, what is that? Like, I'm not gonna cover you in prayer tonight. I'm not gonna be there for you because we're mad or we're beefing, she was like, she repented. And she said she even came to him later and actually
Yeah.
told him about it and asked him for forgiveness. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, wow, like, you know, because he didn't even know, he wouldn't have known any better. But the fact that she would do that, because, you know, and that meant, you know, probably meant the world, especially because her husband's a pastor. So it probably meant the world to her husband to be like, wow, like, you would actually come to me and admit and blah, blah, like, and what do you think that makes him do more, right? But it showed like that conflict, if you're not careful, like it starts seeping into all types of things in your relationship.
That's a great point. And I loved that fact that she mentioned that when we enter into covenant, we are a tool for the Most High. And the devil, Satan, hates when we are a tool for good. When we are living for the Most High, we become a threat to Satan. And it's his job to try to pull us away from what the Most High has for us, what we should be doing. And if he succeeds at that, if he succeeds at giving, you know, letting us succumb to conflict, letting us succumb to negative, angry emotions, letting us like try to win in the moment and lose the battle, you know, lose the war, you know, win the battle but lose the war. Basically, we're fighting to win rather than fighting for our relationship or fighting for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, applies to not only our marriages but also to, I mean, of course, our marriages above almost, because it's a covenant that we chose to go into. We took on that vow. We knowingly came into that. Like when we come into our family, we don't have a choice that I know of picking our family. Mm-hmm. But it's you know, some of the most sacred bonds in the world. But when you go into a marriage, you have chosen, you have consciously chosen to go into covenant with the Most High. You haven't gone into covenant with that person. You've gone into covenant with the Most High. And if you are willing to break that covenant, then Satan wins.
Right. And that's why we even talked about before that, like, our love, you know, I'll take it personal, our love, you know, but our love as far as the diaspora, the way we love, the way the kingdom says, it's the greatest weapon you have. And to break that apart is also the greatest weapon that the devil can do, right? Mm. How much damage has happened because we can't keep marriages together? Mm. How much marriage has happened because, or how much damage has happened because, you know, we simply were like, you know what, it's too much conflict. Like, and we and a lot of it because we don't have the tools. We don't take time out to do all these different things that everybody else is.
Arcada has a great point or question, and I think she might have answered her own question. Arcada said, "Can a person be upset towards their partner and still be able to love them in that space?" And I think the answer is, of course, you know, they love them, and that's why they are so angry in that space. When we're angry, we don't typically get angry with people we have no connection with. We don't typically get angry with people that don't remind us of ourselves or we have no bond with. We get the angriest of people that we actually do love. And I think we have to remember in any type of space that we love that person and that person loves us. And remember to show them love in that space, because it's not only showing them love, but it's showing you love. Like if you break down your partner, if you break down your spouse, you break down your husband, your wife, then you've broken down yourself. You've broken down your own house. You've broken down your own finances. You've broken down your own being. Like what you know, you can't hurt somebody else or punish someone else and think that you're going to feel good about it. You might for about 2 minutes before you feel guilty about even feeling good about winning. You may win, but you really just destroyed yourself in the end. So I definitely think that in our conflicts, we already have that love for that person. Hate, as Pastor always says, is really ignoring, having, you know, being indifferent to something. But, you know, love is like an action. So, you know, we take out our emotions on people we love. We don't take out our emotions on people we're indifferent to. We don't even care enough to have an argument with them.
Yeah, and I would just add 2 things to it. Remember, love is an action, right? So love. So you can be upset with somebody, and that's part of the thing. It's like we get so upset. We're like, I'm not going to do extra. But just because you dislike somebody doesn't mean that you can't love them. You can love your enemy. You're not supposed to lay in the bed with your enemy, right? Some people do, but you're not supposed to lay in the bed with your enemy. You're not supposed to make sure that your enemy can win against you, right? But you can give them certain actions. There's levels to it, right? Like I can't love my son on the level that I love my wife. Doesn't make sense, right? So love is an action. And so you might not like something, but you can, or like someone, but you can still love them. Now, here's the second point I wanted to add on that is that anger. What's the reason why we get angry? Holy Spirit revealed this to me a while ago. And we use this quite often. We talk about this quite often. People usually will get angry with somebody because the person didn't do what they would have done.
Yes.
And so, right. But Yahshua talks about in our sweet spot, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 25, I believe. He talks about how you have to be in a position to realize that debt and anger basically go together. And also there's another scripture that says that you should not let the sun go down on your wrath. So yes, there's a such thing called righteous indignation. That means that you can be righteous about something and your spouse might not be. And in righteousness, you have a right to be like, man, I'm really angered by that. Like, that really messes me up. Like, they didn't obey the will of Yah. I feel like if I was in that position, I wouldn't have done that. Matter of fact, I know I wouldn't have done it because maybe you were in that position. Who knows? And you didn't do whatever they did, right? And once again, I'm not talking about super betrayal, even though that counts. Mm-hmm. But if somebody cheats, that's a different thing, because you at that point, you have a right to get out if you want. You got to make that decision. If you decide to stay in, you still got to go through these things we're talking about, right? But, hey, I would never, I don't know. I would never call somebody and tell them this or whatever, but they told somebody this or whatever, but they didn't mean anything by it. But hey, like, I would never do that. And once again, like, sometimes that's unspoken expectation too, like, because the other person's like, well, this is, I didn't say anything wrong, right? So you might have something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So you're angry. You have every right to be. Maybe maybe it's righteousness. Maybe that person needs to learn that they don't know what it is. They don't know about the other opposite sex enough. Blah 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 blah. Right? Mm-hmm. That happens. At the end of the day, one of the things that you have in place to say, okay, there's actions. Like, for example, once again, conflict, come back to high school stuff again, but conflict mediation. Do we have plans in place? That's why we try to get people marriage contracts or marriage things. I'm sorry.
I like what Perfect said. She said, I feel like the arguing occurs when you no longer want to hear, you just want them to agree. And yeah, I agree with that. This is part of the communication and conflict resolution. Like, you're not actually at a place where you actually want to resolve anything. You just want, like, to me, I think when someone is in that situation, they just want to be right. They don't want to hear the other person out. They don't even want to care about the other person's expectations. And, if I'd be honest, that happens with me a lot, where, like, I don't want you, or I don't want my family to be, I just want them to go along with it. I don't want to feel their emotions. I don't want to care. I want them to want what I want and be okay with it. And I think the arguing does come in, where it's like, I don't care how you feel. I want you to feel the way that I want you to feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that. And, when somebody's talking about prayer, bringing us together, and yeah, prayer helps you. Matter of fact, prayer sometimes can show even your insignificance. Like, sometimes, because you have to humble yourself to go into prayer. Some people don't, but you should try your best. You can come before a throne boldly, but you should be humble. And when you humble yourself, you have to kind of admit, okay, I'm not perfect either. So all the stuff that I'm doing to be, that's why for real, a lot of us, when we have beef, we don't pray, because we know, like, if I'm gonna pray, it's like what's his face, Jonah. Jonah was supposed to go and talk to the Ninevites, and then he didn't want to go. He ran the other way. He ends up going through all the stuff. They toss him over the side of the boat. He gets swallowed up by the big fish, right? We don't know what it was. Doesn't say it was a whale. We just know it was a big fish, so probably something created specifically just for him. He ends up in there 3 days. He says, okay, go ahead. I'll do what you say. Yeah. Allows him to be able to get to where he needs. He goes to Nineveh. He preaches what he's supposed to preach. So he's loving the people he can't stand, right? That's love. He's showing the action. Doesn't like them. How do we know that? Because he says at the end, when you get to, I think, what is it, chapter 4, he gets upset. And he starts yelling basically with the Most High. Chapter 3 or chapter 4, one of the two. And he's like, hey, like, I knew you were going to save them. I knew you were going to help them. I knew you were going to do these things or whatever. Now, Yah has created a tree for him to sit under, right? And so he's got this tree to sit under. And then the Most High has something happen to the tree. Then Jonah's frustrated and saddened about the tree. The Most High is like, wait a minute. So you were more frustrated about what happened to this tree than you are about a group of people that now will be saved because of what you did in love. Because it wasn't about that. Like it wasn't about whether something deserved, because obviously he knows that a group of people is more important than a tree. But in his being frustrated and upset because these people, the Ninevites, have done things bad to us as Israelites. So in his mind, that's all that matters, is they done did his people wrong, and they keep doing his people wrong. I don't want nothing to do with them. But the Most High said they deserve love too. And that's something that he's not married to. But imagine how much, but we make it harder than what it is. And I think you were saying earlier, I know you were saying earlier that a lot of times it's easier to not love, you didn't say in these words, but it's easier to not love or give proper love to our spouse sometimes, due to the fact, that basically, like, we live with them. So like the spouse kind of sometimes can be the best person you give the most to. Sometimes they get the most anger, frustration, right? And especially you got the toil, that 9 to 5 and different things, and you got to deal with the boss. And, you're a black, if we go here, you're a black woman, black man, going through different things, feel disrespected, I mean, you work in a very high level field and you're very great at what you do, but also too, a lot of people on that field, they get into using sexuality to try and get things, and you don't play that game and stuff, so you got to walk the line on certain things and all that. And you come home and sometimes you're not really falling into, like, it's time to be like the stereotypical wife and go into the I'm going to head into the kitchen and make sure that the ambiance is there, blah blah, and this and that. Like, that's, and you need to be able to do that. And so once again, as a spouse, kind of going back to the conflict, are you prepared for somebody who's conflicted? Because she's in the land of our captivity. In the land of our captivity, she going through a lot. So when she steps through that door, I'm dealing with captivity problems, captivity conflicts. Like, sometimes I don't want to be on this job. Okay, like, are you prepared to be able to deal with that? And part of that is, I want to be on this job, so anything right now that you do, like, it's going to irritate me. And it's that might be okay. You know what? I see that you're a human being, and because of the system we're in, you got to have somewhere to unwind. And so, hopefully, once again, develop some things to where you don't have to be the punching bag per se, but sometimes sacrifices. Like, sometimes I know, or and with her, she probably got a lot of it from me when I was doing that too. Like, oh, okay, he's in a mood, I'm probably gonna have to deal with him being a little rough. And hopefully, I don't know if I always did, hopefully I ever did, but I'm pretty sure I did at least a few times. But hopefully every once in a while I'd be like, you know what, babe, I'm sorry. Like, I know I did a few times, like, I'm sorry. I probably just dealing with a lot on the job and doing this, and I'm trying to pass through, and I'm trying to blah, blah, blah. And I think I just took some stuff out. And you know what she would then do? Like, she then goes, you know what? Like, I can see that. Matter of fact, maybe you need to pray more. Maybe you need to be careful about what spirits are on you, this and that. And like, we'd actually talk about it more, because she was like, hey, I'm willing, what you did is wrong. You came at me, blah, blah, but because you even admitted it, you know what, let's get to what the issue is and how you can do some stuff while you're not around. And then now what happens the next day? Like, she surprised me all of a sudden, like, hey, you know what, I got this done, I know you like this, here's some food, go ahead, relax, I'm gonna take Solomon to jump park, something like that, whatever, you go ahead and relax, because I know that you like, you're introvert and maybe you've been doing everything for everybody else. I know you got to do your live in like an hour. Why don't you just go ahead and be by yourself, do your live, and then we'll come back around, something like that. Like, it's easier when the language changes, when we start using certain words differently. It makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, like what you said about looking at someone's, like, stats, basically. How you like, Pastor, I don't know if anybody knows, he's like the master at looking at a sports player's statistics, their history, all these things. And the thing is, like, we do that for other people. When we think something important, we look at their statistics and we judge them based on their statistics, not just one game or one situation. We give them the benefit of doubt based on their overall stats. And we also take into account their health, their family history, their relationships with, others outside of their team. And if we're looking at our relationship as our team, we have to look at all the other stuff outside that's playing into their current situation or current status, vital statistics that they're coming into the game with, they're coming into the room to deal with you with. Like Sister Betty said, isn't there also the experience you were raised in, triggers, traumas that play into the actions as well? And we have to look into their family history as well, and into what's going on with them outside of the field or outside of the arena.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
How often do you think before, right? Because forgive and all this stuff, there's a lot of stuff should be happening before. That's part of our problem, is that we get into the relationship and we've never considered this. But how much do you think people before they get into relationships actually think about those things? Like, do I know this person's traumas? Do I know this person's triggers? I'm not going to accept, I don't have anything. People, oh no, I'm fine, I'm this and that. No, like, I'm getting involved with a person. And how much do you think that people actually do that, and how much change do you think would happen if people actually looked at that from the beginning versus like dealing with that in the middle of 10, 15 years together?
I think, if people cared, they would consider that. But really, when we first get into a relationship, I know for myself also, like, we're not thinking about what the other person needs. We're thinking about getting our own needs met. We're thinking about, oh man, I met this great person, they're going to fulfill this need in my life. You're not really, like, people aren't really going into relationships a lot of times thinking of what needs they're going to have to fulfill in the other person's life. It's more so like an egotistical driven type thing, and it's about me and what I need and what I want. And it wasn't until much later in our marriage that I started thinking about, oh, this marriage isn't about us necessarily as much as it is about the mission. Like, what because if it were about us, I don't know how long us would be able to hold it together. Like, if it was just about us, because our needs aren't always at the forefront and our needs aren't always met, and especially not to our expectations. But if we're always like, coming into something or not realizing that this person has a history, they have feelings, they have their own expectations, their own traumas, their own experiences they're coming with. And so do you. They have their own family history, the way that they were raised to do things that may be different. Like, you and I, our families are very different in terms of communication. For me, my family is a bit like too open, too honest, too into you, too in your face, too ready for conflict. And whereas your family is more
we're complete opposite, to where we don't really say something, and the second somebody is honest, because we're never honest, like, everybody just splits apart. So yeah, it's very different.
And so my family, we don't know when to start, when to not be together. And it's, we're coming with a whole different dynamic in the way that we even confront life or deal with situations or deal with communication. So of course I didn't take that into consideration. Like, I just knew that I liked you, and I knew that I loved you, and I knew that things could be great, but I didn't know a lot of stuff because I didn't know, like, how you were exactly raised, how the dynamics come in, how even different family relationships or even traumas from the past will play into the way you may be thinking in a certain instance. Just like, I think you came into it knowing certain things about me, but not everything about me, and having to say, okay, I'm going to deal with the fact that she has this trauma from the past, and I'm going to have to compensate for that. Like, one of the things you told me is that because when I was little, my parents kind of split, and my father didn't live in the house with me, and I have like abandonment issues because of it. And at our 8-year mark, he was like, "You see, I've been here for this time. I'm still here. I'm gonna be here. You don't have to worry." And
Can I so if you didn't, I'm not going super deep in anything, but like basically like her father left around 8, right? So I knew 8 years was important because she took, because we had a conversation, right? So 8 years is not the end all be all by any stretch, right? But 8 years basically was just like, okay, after 8 years, I know that like this is the begin. Like for me, I put it like the beginning, right? Like your father, for whatever reason, right? I'm not even here to belittle, talk bad about whatever. Your father, and he's still around, right? He comes and helps with things from time to time, things like that, right? So I'm not saying he's not in their life, blah blah blah, right? But just as far as that particular thing and the way it happened, I won't give details of stuff, but just the way it happened, I was like, okay, 8 years, I'm all in just to make it as far as 8 years, because that's the beginning. Like, I want you to know 8 years, that means from that point on, like for me, I'm started. So I'm not saying I didn't do anything. Obviously, like I'm still doing there. I was trying to love. I was trying to show what I could, even with not making as much money as I could. I was trying to show love in different ways or whatever, improving myself every day. But now, okay, look, I've been here 8 years, and now, like now from this point on, we starting, and I want you, and I think, I said that to her not just when we got. I told her that when we were together early, like 8 years in, when I'm here, like, okay, certain things we're not gonna have. That's not gonna be part of the argument because the dedication's there. Like you see that this is like the bare minimum. So like from this point on, this might be a newness for you because there was a man in your life, sure, but for only 8 years. So now, okay, like I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Like in a couple more years, that'll be when our son is 8 years old, which is like, okay, so even in his life, you can see like, and it really, that's more so, if we be honest, because we come with conflicts, just let's just call that what it is a generational curse thing. It's like, okay, like you had to deal with these things. I'm sorry, were you about to say something for somebody
I was
else?
looking at Tara,
Okay.
Tara's comment. Tara.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a generational curse thing.
She was saying.
Oh,
no, go ahead.
No, long story, just real quick. There's a generational curse thing that was going on, and so that's just basically a way of saying like, hey, you see that's broken, that's done, right? Like 2 years from now, hey, with your child, you'll see, hey, that's broken, that's done. From that point on, like we're in another thing, but we broke that curse. And watch this, like we talked about earlier, we did it together. Right, like we didn't do it where, oh well, I need to get myself together and get myself perfect. No, like a promise fulfilled. Like I said, like I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I never make mistakes. I'm saying though, I did promise her, like, hey, when she was thinking about stuff and hey, maybe we should break up and blah blah, and I need to get myself better and da da da. And I was like, well, why don't we get better together? Okay, well, 8-year mark. It was put on the calendar, so to speak. Right here we are, 8 years. When we got to that mark. Okay, 2 years later, when we got to that mark, done. Right, and then from there, right? So those are things that you're there. So a 10-year mark for us is different than others. I'm not saying it's not more powerful or it's more powerful, whatever. But I'm saying like 10-year mark is different because it's a generational curse remover. And so we did that together. Like it wasn't it's because of me. It's not because, no, like we promised each other. We have conflict, and there's conflicts that I have or whatever that I've had to tell her about and different things and stuff like that. And there's stuff that she deals with behind the scenes that she's trying to help me with every day. And some things that I won't say she accepts, but she's helping me through. I'm not perfect or whatever, but there's different things or whatever. And when she's there with me, similarly, I won't bring up a bunch of details, like I said, to make sure family stuff that we need to stay together. But there's things that I bring from other things I've had in my past, other relationships, and I used to put it on her that, hey, you sounding just like blah blah blah, you acting just, and she'd have to tell me sometimes like, I'm not that person. And in my mind I hear her, but it's like, but guess what, after a little while and seeing it's there, okay, that curse isn't on me anymore. Or hey, I saw this happen to in between my mom and my dad. I had both of them in my life until death do us part. I saw them pass away, but still, if I'm not careful, I try to take something that's not on us and bring it on us. But that's not a curse we have to live with anymore. But I'm sorry, we had
I was looking at Tara Boomdier. She said I was in a relationship that expressed their trauma, but used it as an excuse for bad behavior, not to heal. And for me, that's a tough one because it's sometimes people use different situations to manipulate. Like we were talking about in the women's meeting, how some people feign or pretend they have a mental illness just so that they can get out of doing something they don't want to do. But then I guess we could look at that as like a weakness that the person hasn't quite matured or come into the understanding that they need to fix it, they need to deal with it, and there's no way that we can deal with it for them. But I don't know if there's a level of empathy that we need to have for them, because you know just like they have a weakness that they maybe can't see, or using manipulative techniques, or just being an overall bad person. We got with them for a reason sometimes, and maybe it's to learn a lesson, maybe it's because we have our own weak spots that we can't see, that just because we don't know that we have a weak spot in ourselves, or that we're doing something similar. Because I find a lot that in our relationship, and the relationship even with my mother, I can see like negative behaviors that someone close to me is displaying, and then I started to realize, I kind of do that too. And I think that's kind of sometimes the benefit of being with someone, is to learn yourself as well. Like, it's not about improving them, it's about improving you. And we can't fix anybody but ourselves, and we can use it as an opportunity to see where we might actually have flaws.
Yeah, I think too sometimes, like you said, it's about winning. We call it here, like we call it in the SOC family, being right instead of being righteous. You can choose one. You're oftentimes not going to be able to have both. So you're like, do you want to be right and do it at all costs? Like I made the joke a little while ago. We come into arguments a lot like it's a Rocky match. You got the guy in the corner. Oh, you're gonna kill him, Rock. You're gonna destroy. That's how we come in. Like, yeah, we be waiting. Like, we got the little thing on our shoulder, like sizing us up. Like, yeah, you gonna kill. You got this one thing, and we pull out something. It has nothing to do. I know both of us have done it to each other. If we just be honest, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And it's like this thing from 7.5 years ago pops up, and you're like,
well, you're better at like pulling yourself out of the conflict, and like using your words to build. Like, sometimes Pastor will stop in the middle of it and be like, I love you, this isn't about me not loving you, and no matter what I say, I'm not going anywhere. Like, and reminds me of all the good things there are about me during an argument. I don't know how he does it, because I can't do it. I like get into a space where I'm angry, and I'm like, I just want to be angry. And so like, but yeah.
But that's because my love language is words.
Yeah.
So I like words, and I know that if I go too far, or if the other person's go too far, like that's why sometimes like I have a lot of men do this. Like, and a lot of sisters sometimes will be like, "Why you stop talking? And why ain't doing it?" Because sometimes men are honest, and they're like, "I know I'm about to say something, or we're about to say something to each other that is going to take a minute for us to come back from. So we might as well like try to calm it down, or try to make sure that we get back to something that's more feasible or whatever." But let's try to catch up a little bit real quick. So how do you know when trauma is recognized, being healed, and not being used as a personality trait? Well, first of all, is trauma respected? Like, first things first, does somebody respect the trauma? I think that somebody can be empathetic and at the same time not have to, not baby somebody through, but like not have to say that you don't need to change. Like, sometimes, like, I'll be empathetic with you and walk through it or whatever, but at least respect the fact that I have the trauma. I think once you do that, then a person who respects your trauma, they would never bring it up in the middle of an argument. The person who respects your trauma, at least not to just win, right? The person who respects your trauma would say, hey, I'm going to walk through you with it. Like, for example, I don't know if this is even what we would call trauma, but I think the way people react to it can be traumatic, if that makes sense. So, like, let's say somebody is trying, this is something that happens with men and women in relationships I've talked to. Husband is trying to lose some weight, wife's always saying he overweight, or vice versa. Usually it's way more vice versa, right? So, okay, if you feel like that's something that's there and that's a trauma that you have, you don't feel like yourself, right? Maybe you've had a baby, you don't feel like yourself, whatever, it's been tough for you. You look at the dress. A lot of women have, like, this is the dress that I wore, and I'm trying to get back in this high school dress or this wedding dress or something like that, right? The husband, if he realized that's traumatic, he would never be like, you know what, you just this and that, blah blah. You know what he do? Okay, babe, you know what? I want to walk through this with. I'm empathetic. I hear you. I'll stop using certain words. I'll change my language. I'll make sure that I'm not doing certain things. I won't even watch certain programs. Matter of fact, I'll change my eating habits, all that. But guess what? Like, okay, cool. What can I do to help you out? Let's go for a walk every rising. Hey, when I do my exercises in the rising, if I do my stretching, if I do my whatever you do, I offer you, because all you can do is give somebody an opportunity, right? So there's a lot of stuff my wife gives me an opportunity to do. I can say yes or I can say no, but she gives me an opportunity. It's not her fault that I said no. Like, she can't control me. I'm a grown man. I can't control her. She a grown woman. Matter of fact, I'm a grown man and she a grown woman, right? So, like, I can't control another human being, especially an adult. I can give opportunities. Like, hey, I let you know, hey, I'm with you. And we've done it sometimes we don't. Like, both of us will be like, hey, from time to time, hey, you know what? We already get up early. Let's just get up a little bit earlier. We're going to get up when the sun rises. We're going to go for a walk every day. We're going to do push-up and stuff. And sometimes we do it for a little bit. Sometimes the day that it's supposed to start, we don't do nothing because something happens or we allow something to happen. Guess what? That was on us either way. If we did it, it's on us. If we didn't do it, it's on us. But we won't condemn that whole, we're not in condemnation, Romans 8:1 affirmation. We can't condemn each other for each other just being adults.
I love Tara's question. The how do you know? Sorry. Let me get back. How do you know when trauma is recognized and being healed and not use a personality trait? And I think if we really knew how to do better and could do better, we would. But sometimes we know that there's a problem. Like, sometimes you know that you're broke, or that we know that we need more money, but if we knew exactly how to do it or could do it, we would do it. And sometimes it's not that we don't want to get better. Sometimes it's that we don't know how to get better, or can't bring ourselves to do it, because we wrestle not against flesh and blood only. We wrestle against principalities also. Sometimes there are different spiritual factors that are blocking, and it's not necessarily that the person like, sometimes they don't recognize they need to be healed, and sometimes they just don't know how to do it. And it's like, I guess that's where empathy comes in. That's where the love comes in, to try to help that person get to a place where they can at least recognize that there is a problem, or help them work through it. Because if they knew how to do better, like, sometimes we'll have a friend or a parent or somebody, we see that clearly there's a problem. We see that clearly they have trauma, and clearly sometimes they use it as an excuse for their poor behavior. But really, if they could do better, wouldn't they? Like, we really can't think that someone who knows how to do better and has the ability and has the resources to do better just won't do better because they just don't want to do better. They just want to be in a bad space. Obviously, they can't do better. So we can hold it against them, or we can, and judge them and move on from it, or, use that as an excuse to treat them a certain way. Or we can say, maybe they just can't do better. Maybe they don't. Like, maybe if they could do better, they would do better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Cynthia said, beauty or love for me in their eyes helps me see the beauty of me again. Amen. You were saying that your husband does something similar. I can't remember where we were when we were talking about it, but we're glad that he does. Hopefully what I was saying was something that's, well, it sounds like it's something that's great. Tiffany said you're working on that yourself. Amen. You just want to speak with speak energy with love. Yeah, yeah.
That's great. That's a great goal, actually.
Amen. Aphrodisiac said a lot of people use their trauma to cry wolf. That's true. And sometimes some people go through trauma. Like, there's some people that don't know life outside of trauma. So some people associate themselves with the trauma. Like, there's some people that you can tell them how great they are 75,000 times a day. And every time at the end of the day, because they've known nothing other than trauma, they're going to try to go right back to their default setting. So sometimes it's not even something that's against you or just because they're trying to make an excuse. Sometimes it's just because, like, that's all they know. I mean, thank you, Sister Betty. Acknowledging the trauma doesn't mean accepting repeated harmful behaviors. Most definitely not. And we don't think that it should. You said it's a beautiful, accepting reflection in the mirror is crucial. It's a beautiful experience. Amen. We have to have patience for change. Yeah, and even sometimes better than patience is long suffering. How long you willing to suffer? And as Minister Tamara taught us a few weeks ago now, suffering, it literally means, the root word of it is talks about what you choose to go through. And that's something, when she said that, that's something I've been carrying for a few weeks now. Like, yeah, if I'm going to suffer, like, I choose to go through that. Like, I chose, I chose Amma to death do his part. Like, so you got to remind yourself, and I'm not saying suffering's not like, you can, like, Christ suffered for us. Like, suffering's not a bad word in and of itself. Like, we hear suffering, we go, oh my God. No, like, like, I suffer to become a better person. Like, if I want to make sure that my body is in shape and stuff and I continue to heal, I got to suffer through certain pains to be able to get to where I want to be. Sometimes I got to suffer through things that I don't like to do to be able to do things I want to do. Like, that's, we suffer through a 9-to-5 so that one day, hopefully, we don't have to experience a 9-to-5. And we're suffering through certain things. So hopefully our child and maybe, children and stuff like that will never have to suffer through a 9-to-5 ever. Right. That's breaking the generational curse. And that meant that somebody before us had to suffer all types of things in the 60s and 50s and stuff, dealing with just being black. And that means before then, somebody had to suffer through things being a sharecropper, or, and actually, I think on both sides, honestly, I think grandmothers were dealing with sharecropping and stuff, or one grandmother was dealing with stuff in Jamaica, dealing with sharecropping stuff. Then you deal with that. Somebody was suffering through stuff going through Reconstruction. Deal with that. Somebody was suffering coming out of stuff coming through slavery. So deal with that. Somebody was suffering before stuff, either with slavery or being stripped from their indigenous tribe here, or being stripped from Africa, or being stripped from wherever they came from. So somebody suffered in our family for everything that we have, and we're just, but it's gotten, if we be honest about it, it's gotten better. Like, obviously, I talk about us being enslaved and chattel slavery still existing and stuff like that, but I'm not going to act like there's no difference in what in what somebody was in 1850 or 1865 and what we're going through now. And I could definitely tell you, we have family members on both sides that, as far as grandparents, or, well, our parents, our child's grandparent, but we have parents on both sides who come literally from the mud. Like, you can go to places that they came from still to this day, dirt roads still. Like, and you're looking for something on your iPhone or your Android to figure out where you are. You ain't gonna find it. And they're gonna tell you, the people that you're traveling with, they're gonna say, oh yeah, when you get to this tree, like, legit, like, when you get to this tree, you want to make a right. And it's like, this tree, yeah, not a light. Some places they say that's the light. So that's the light. No, you get to this tree, and you need to know, go there and you make it right. And you better know that tree. That tree has never been chopped down, because that tree, everybody knows that's the marker, right? So, like, a lot of us have come from things where somebody had to suffer. They chose to go through things for us. And so we have to remember that too, is that, once again, you're choosing conflict. We're carrying hundreds of years of conflict. It's not just the fact that, like, she married me. She married my father, who worked 2.5 jobs every day and did so cheerfully while he had to watch his own wife pass away. Like, she's marrying that when she married me, right? Like, that, I carry that. She's marrying my mother, who she never met, but passed away, multiple sclerosis, lost her mind at the end because of the MS, and at the same time, on her deathbed, spoke life over her son. But there's conflict. that she married, because now there's depression that was attached to that. And when everybody's celebrating Mother's Day, and I celebrate her on Mother's Day and celebrate her mother on Mother's Day. But every Mother's Day, guess what I'm doing? First person I'm contacting by text, guaranteed, my father. Hey, how you doing, Dad? Because you don't have your wife. And that means I don't have my mom. And so guess who else I'm contacting? My sister, right? And then my little brother who never knew his mom. Guess who I'm contacting? Hey, let me give you some facts about mom. This is what mom did. This is how mom loved, blah, blah. This is what mom used to say about you and stuff that he might not have ever known, right? Trying to get him to who has a rough memory, kind of sort of what his mother was about, really wants a mom but never had it, right? Like, so she's married all that. That's one generation, by the way. She made generation before that. Grandfather, former military man, served with honor and everything, got out though, had some mental issues, and was very abusive. Loving from what I hear and stuff, but all I knew was the loving side, the part that he was quiet, he was pretty much on his way out with diabetes. But apparently he was somebody you don't want to be around. Guess what? She married that too. Right? So like we're marrying conflict. And I think to remember that is like, but also too, we've talked about this before, we can be curse breakers. So just because those are things that happen doesn't mean that we can't break the curse. Like my father, when I was young, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't mind it, right? Because he's come out of it and he's great with it now. But when I grew up, I couldn't remember my father even saying, I love you to me. One day I decided though, instead of being sad about it, I said, you know what? Every time I get a chance to, no matter where I was stationed in the military or even after, I used to always call, if I was in Hawaii, it doesn't matter what time it was or whatever, I knew, all right, he's like 7, 8, 9 hours, whatever it is. And I would call him and be like, hey, talk to him. And my whole purpose, even if I was only talk, because he don't talk on the phone that long. So even if I was only going to talk for him 2 minutes, in my mind, this is going to end with me saying, I love you, right? Curse breaker, right? And so he would pause at first. He would be weirded out. It would get quiet. But, he would say, okay, I'll talk to you later, right? But now, guess what? Every time I see him, every time I talk to him on the phone, it's always, hey, love you, son. He always says, love you, Amma, always to his grandchild, especially, love you, Solomon, appreciate you, praying for you. He'll text me, you text him back and forth. He doesn't like to talk. He likes to text more. But guess what he's going to say at the end of the conversation? All right, I love you. Send my love, right? Like, so he always wanted, apparently, to do it. But he had never even seen someone do it. So guess what? The Bible even says sometimes a child shall lead them. So what are you willing to do to suffer through? Solomon has been sometimes when we start getting a little cantankerous, he sometimes will be the person to say something that we taught him in that moment that we're losing ourselves. He sometimes steps in and does something that reminds us like, yeah, this is starting to get a little like out there. Like, what are we doing? But just being honest. Like, the suffering. What are you willing to suffer through? It's a learning experience, and we're not any better than anybody else.
And that took patience, and that took determination. You had to decide that you were going to soldier through the awkward moments, soldier through the not having the reciprocated I love you, and you had to make a decision to be consistent with it. And I think like sometimes we put fault on other people for our own communication, our own shortcomings in terms of our lack of patience, our lack of communication skills. Because like I had that type of revelation at one point when I was arguing with my sister. I was arguing with her constantly all the time, and I was ready to win. I knew she was wrong. I just knew in my heart that she was just wrong. She was just awful and just spoiled and entitled. And then one day the spirit hit me and was like, we both grew up in a situation where we had that, first of all, we're both good people. Second of all, we love each other. Third of all, if anybody came against us, we would fight them vehemently until the battle was over because we love each other till death. And nobody else could be able to say the things that we say against each other to either one of us. And we wouldn't say those things to our worst enemy, but we would say it to each other. And it struck me that our arguing was just as much my communication downfall as it was hers. Like that I didn't have the communication skills to prevent any type of conflict or argument with her. It wasn't necessarily just her, and it wasn't And then I realized that I had a responsibility to break that curse, to make a change, to help us both to develop better communication skills, not just for myself. That, yeah, I knew I needed to make a change because obviously I had a communication shortcoming that I need to overcome. Because just because I'm having that conversation with her like that doesn't mean that I'm not going to take that same lack of communication skills into another situation, another conversation, another relationship, even with my husband. Like, knowing that I come from that and that I have something to work on, opened my eyes. But then it helped me have compassion for her as well. That, okay, I'm doing similar to what you're doing, and I'm coming from the same place, and um, realizing that she's human too, and that I'm human, and that I have, like you talk about forgiveness, I have to forgive in advance, and to realize that we're both coming with shortcomings that we're gonna have to overcome, and to love that person enough to work on overcoming them.
Yeah. And I think, and we're getting close to time too. So, because we also got to get up early, I know, for our early rise of Bible study session. So I won't, well, at least I won't. I don't know if you want to, but I won't keep anybody on too much long. But I will say this too. I think that one thing that we just don't have enough time. Maybe we can find some time to do something on, I don't know, Patreon or something like this, because I know this is something that you feel strongly about too. But having roles that we decide to stay in, especially as far as masculinity and femininity, will help a lot with a lot of this stuff too. Like, because a lot of times what's interesting that I find in our conversations is like when the argument happens, especially between husband and wife, you'll find that really the husband starts going into the feminine a little too much, and the wife starts going to the masculine a little too much. And it's very interesting. Like, I don't know if I've ever said it like that. The Holy Spirit kind of speaking right now.
Ooh, look at that. I want a screenshot. I don't know if it's too late. Oh man, that was so cool. Thank you, Shalonda.
It's a possibility. Maybe we can. I got to remember how long this is in, but it's a possibility. Maybe we can look at it on the live replay. You can do a screenshot. Once it's gonna take till tomorrow to upload though. But yeah. So like, but one of the things that's there is to a lot. Like we say this a lot. A lot of men have been, effeminate, not just as far as gay or trans or whatever. A lot of men have become effeminate because masculinity has been deemed toxic.
Thank you, Shanghai.
Right, and so masculinity has been deemed toxic, and the same thing, femininity, in a woman has been demonized. So a lot of women are masculine, trying to do what's necessary. And so, one thing about it, once again, going back to what we were talking about, when conflict arises for men, usually it's because number one, needs not being met. What is that? Respect. I feel disrespected. If he says you don't hear me, what is he saying? You don't respect me. That's all he's really saying. Like, hey, you don't listen to me. I asked to blah blah. Well, you asked me to clean, and his first thing's gonna be to what? Well, you asked me to clean the gutters, but I feel like you don't clean the house. Why is he saying that? He's saying like, okay, I feel like it's disrespectful to ask me blah blah. Like, there might be a reason why you didn't clean the house. Hey, you might have 17 babies running around. I don't know, right? You might have a dog, babies, this, that, whatever, right? I'm just saying, you might have had a hard day. He might not know what happened. I'm just saying the reason he goes there is because he's talking about respect. For the wife, what's their number one need going to be 9 times out of 10? That's going to be what? Security. So if she said, like, so if my wife talks to me and she says something, I'm trying to get better at this. I am not great at this at all, right? Because words of affirmation is my thing. So y'all pray for me. I'm being honest right now. But like, if my wife says to me, I know that if a woman says to me, you've never done XYZ, she's not saying you've never done it. She's saying that in that moment she feels so insecure because you not securing her, that it's as if you've never done it. I know that's what she means, right? But for a man, it's like almost like kryptonite. Like, he goes into a place where he has to tell you all his bona fides, right? Because why? He feels disrespected, but at the same time, you're saying you feel insecure. And I think the word usage thing goes into where, all right, so now he goes into the femininity thing where he's like, I don't feel secure because you won't respect me. And you go into the masculine thing where you say, I don't feel respected because I feel insecure. And neither side's trying to be like, somebody at some point has to say, okay, look, all right, let me go into the masculine thing. All right, cool. I hear you. Look, okay, our job is to secure you. I dropped the ball in securing you. And you know what happens on the feminine side? Oh, okay, you know what? Well, thank you for admitting that you didn't secure me. That actually makes me feel more secure. You know what? I respect you for that. I could do blah, blah, blah that you're saying. And then what happens now? The secondary needs come into play. Oh, okay, well, you know what, baby? I appreciate that so much. Let me give you a hug and a kiss. There goes affection. Oh, thank you for the affection. You know what? I can do blah, blah. Now that might lead to, because she got affection, that leads to what? Sex, right? I'm just saying, right? Those are real things, right? Like that happens with people, and out here, right? And then it keeps on leading to other things, right? So, you know, like, but these are things that we don't bring up, we don't talk about, but there's a reality like that. A lot of times, the man, when he starts saying, okay, whatever, he actually comes out of the masculine. Ladies, you think like it's like when, like guys, people think that like guys, when they're trying to get stronger, they're going to take testosterone. No, when a guy's trying to get stronger, he takes estrogen. He's actually to get outside of himself and become more aggressive. He actually has to go into more feminine. Like a lot of people don't realize that. Like for a guy to get more aggressive. So if you see a guy that's lifting crazy amount of weight, like bench pressing 600 pounds, 700 pounds, guess what that guy's doing? He's having to actually go a lot more into the feminine to be able to reach those goals. He has to go into more estrogen. He has to take stuff that's not in him naturally. He has to get his body out of balance. He has to get off track to be able to become more than what he really should be able to be, right? There are freaks of nature that can do those things, but for the most part, if you see a guy that's bench pressing 600 pounds, right? Like the people who bench press pounds are people like Wilt Chamberlain, 7'2" tall, right? Being able to bench press 600 pounds. Your average cat ain't bench pressing 600 pounds unless he's doing something to his body. So you see him doing that to his body. Why? What is he doing? He's putting something feminine in him to get him more aggressive. So if your man's
out of balance.
Right. So if I'm more aggressive, I actually end up getting more feminine to be able to keep up the aggression. Like a lot of men in their natural state, even if they upset, they're like, you know what, whatever, I'm gonna chill out. That's testosterone. The more chilled I am, the more testosterone I actually have. Right. But the more my estrogen level picks up, I start getting hyper aggressive. And the same thing, guess what? Vice versa for a woman. If a woman is getting more aggressive, guess what she's doing? She's actually tapping more into the testosterone. So if you see a woman out there lifting a bunch of weight or going really fast or doing things like that, she had to go and get testosterone. Right. So a man's not going to really get more testosterone to be able to make his body advance outside of its balance, right? And a woman's not going to go and get more estrogen. She's going to get more testosterone. So when we start arguing back and forth, what actually happens, it actually manifests in the physical, that you have to actually, a man has to become more feminine to be able to keep up an argument, and a woman has to become what? More masculine to keep up an argument. And so now guess what happens? Now both of you feel unfulfilled, because even if somebody wins or even if y'all finish, you walk away and the man is like, I don't feel right because I'm feminine. And the woman is like, I don't feel right because I'm masculine. So even if you guys come to some agreement, you're still so hyped up and you're outside of yourselves because you're not in your position. So the man's walking away, he's like, I feel secure, but I still don't feel respected. The woman's walking away saying, I feel respected, but I don't feel secure. You didn't do anything. Even if y'all came to a great place at the end, you still don't feel right because you're not where you're supposed to be. So when we go back to our roles, and it's like, okay, look, respect, security, affection, sex, like these are needs. Like, you know, these are basic human needs, and these are needs in the order of what we look at. Okay, now it's affection. So guess what? Now, like, you know, now it's easier to take accountability. What am I accountable for? I'm accountable for making sure that my wife feels secure and she gets affection. Right? If I can give her security 9 times out of 10, even if I ain't doing other stuff, even if money's funny, whatever, and sometimes it is, right? Like even if it's not exactly what I want it to be, if she feels secure enough in, like, I don't know what you tell me wrong, 90%, 80%, I don't know, whatever. If she feels secure in a huge percentage of stuff, she's going to basically be like, okay, even though I don't know exactly where we're going, like, I trust you enough because you've made us secure over this amount of time. Okay, cool. So you've made us secure long enough. I'm willing to follow, even if I'm not comfortable in it yet. At least I'll follow you and we'll see what happens. Like even in the trip, I didn't have everything the way that she would necessarily have liked it to be. Some of it was like, hey, trust me, we're going to go on faith, do this or whatever.
That trip was so surreal. I mean,
right.
Like,
and there had been enough security for her to trust. So now, because of the trip, if I were to say something similar, right, I would probably make
follow
sure,
him into it.
right? Huh?
I said I would follow you into it.
Yeah, she probably followed me more into it this time. Why? Because we did it, even though everything wasn't 100% the way that it was like guaranteed to be. Everything worked out well more than what I even thought it could be, right?
Yeah.
So like
I
because
can
of that, in every place we went to, it was always better. I think the first night was iffy, and after that, everything else fell into line except for one day that we were super behind on something. So out of that, that's 2 days out of a month. So, and that was with everything, with us not being in agreement on everything, but still there was enough security. Hey, follow me on this. Okay, let's see. And boom, it happened. So now down the road, we try to do something like that again. More security, more trust, and probably if I say, okay, this time can we try this and this, whatever, it's probably, and I'm not saying we were way off. We obviously, the trip doesn't happen if we both aren't working together. But I'm just saying, like, certain things that we probably fussed a little bit about and stuff like that probably go away this time because we're like, we've seen this happen, and you were secure in it or whatever. And because that, like, now the respect level goes up. When the respect level goes up, I guess what I want to do, I want to secure you more. Right? Like, because the respect level goes up. If we do that, the masculine and feminine thing takes care of itself.
That's true.
Right? And the masculine feminine thing takes care of itself. But if it gets to a place to where it's like, oh no, I'm gonna tell you about yourself, blah blah. The man to be, once again, to be more aggressive as a man, I have to tap into the feminine. And for her to be more aggressive as a woman, she has to tap into the masculine. And it's very interesting because in sports they try to teach, the system teaches us the opposite. So in sports you think, oh, he's a manly man because no. Michael Jordan had to tap into the feminine to be as aggressive towards people as he did. He wasn't. Yeah, he had to be more feminine. He had to be less masculine to be a jerk. Now y'all say, well, he won the championship, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, but guess what? You following that, you're following somebody more feminine. Follow Kobe Bryant. Look, I'm not speaking ill of the dead. I'm just giving you a scientific fact. For Kobe Bryant to be the jerk that he needed, that y'all think he needed to be to win, he had to be more feminine. That's the way it worked. Right? That's why when they're looking for stuff, they're not looking at, obviously if your testosterone levels rise, it can be questionable. But for the most part, guess what? They don't look at your testosterone level. They're looking first for your estrogen levels, because they realize you're not going to do certain things outside of that. If you're right, because masculinity, testosterone caps you off because that's nice. That's a nice balance. That's what your body needs. You can be super strong and have this. But if you want to be like uber strong, they're like, okay, he got to do something with his femininity.
Well, it's like nobody ever describes somebody who's crazy as even kill. They always say they're out of their mind, they're out of whack. Like, when someone's not acting right, when they're just out of themselves, it's not because they're balanced. It's not because they're within themselves. They're like out of whack. They're doing something that's out of balance. And that's the only way you can get somebody to the point of like frustration and anger is if they're out of themselves. If they're in themselves and they're, balanced and even killed, they're not gonna go off like they would. So that makes a lot of sense. What you're saying.
And it makes it so. And if it's a physical manifestation, where did it manifest from? Through the soul. It came from the spirit. So if you're dealing with things, like that. So, what I would say is something I'm trying to learn and get better at every day. If you're having issues, anger issues, if you're having frustration issues, things like that. I think even when I was having some issues recently with anger issues, I was telling you, like, I think I need to check my testosterone and stuff. And I need to figure out what's going on. And I might have estrogen levels that are too high. But because a lot of stuff that we eat, even if we think we're eating holistic, sometimes like you got to be careful. Those things, don't.
Well, I guess in that, like, you have a point, because I actually read an article where it was saying that synthetic estrogen creates estrogen dominance, and like when we have synthetic estrogen, which comes from like plastics, especially like sodas and things that are caustic and start wearing away the plastic, and it goes into the food, like tomato sauce is caustic. So if tomato sauce is in a plastic jar, it's wearing that plastic in there, and that plastic registers fake estrogen in the body. Fake estrogen is a hormone, or is treated like a hormone, and if your hormones out of whack, how do you act? Crazy. Like, how does anybody act if their hormones out of whack? They act crazy. So, and our diets have a lot to do with it. Lack of sleep, lack of hydration, lack of other things can cause issues. So I get like there's a lot of good points, and I think that goes back into like the stats and the history of someone. Like, if we're looking at a player again, we're looking at how are they treating their body? Are they getting enough sleep? Are they getting enough water, or have they sustained an injury recently? Like, we're taking all those things into account, and we'll give them leeway. We don't even know them, and we'll treat people on the street nice and come home and treat our family and our spouse, our husband and
we
wife.
have more information.
Like, yeah.
Well, you know, and you got to cast. I guess you have to cast aside more information in order to do that. Because if you do it for a stranger, you know, and I have to be careful with that because I talk to some. I mean, a lot of you aren't strangers to us, but some of you I meet, you know, recently, or we have very bare minimum relationship or whatever, and I have to be careful. You know, she'll remind me sometimes it's real. Like, you know, if I'm not careful, I can treat somebody who I don't know better because her and I, you know, have whatever, it's small stuff or whatever, but you know, it's true. And so you have to be real and say, yeah, like you have to, you know, you have to realize that. And if you can do that for other people, you know, I mean, we do it all the time. You go to work and you smile at people who, if they had said the same thing to you on the street, you would punch them out, right? But you smile at them. Why? Because in order to get to your job and get paid, so to speak, you're willing to do what it takes. Well, your marriage pays you off, you know, eternally. Like, you know, you're learning how to become a greater person for eternity right now in everything that you do in your relationship, or your relationship with your children, your relationship with your mom, your relationship with your dad, your relationship with your sister, your brother, your grandmother, your grandfather, your niece, your nephew, whatever. Your teammate. You know, if you have teammates at work or whatever it is, or teammates on your team. You know, I don't know what age group is watching us. You know, your classmate, whatever. Like your ability, you're learning things now that are going to help you later on, like you were talking about with your sister. Not just how you dealt with your sister, dealt with your sister and you personally, but if you weren't careful, maybe you carry some of those things into other relationships. Maybe you carry it on your job. Maybe you carry it into a relationship with a man that you would have had, or whatever the case might be. So yeah, you know, those are things that I think we need to get together.
Absolutely, I definitely agree. Cougar Empress says it's crazy they wanted to give us estrogen when we go through menopause, setting us up to look crazy. Absolutely, setting people up to look crazy. Alien Aphrodisiac says, Miss Alma, what's a good food to eat to regulate estrogen? So estrogen dominance is caused by a thyroid issue. The thyroid regulates the hormones, and thyroid hormone needs thyroid stimulating hormone needs, or TSH needs, iodine to work better. So foods that are high in iodine, you know, like seafoods, like seaweed, kelp, Irish moss, fish like
I need to make some Irish moss jelly. I've been looking at videos, people making Irish moss jelly. I'm like, I need to make some.
Oh yeah, you can make some. We got plenty of it here. Tuna, sardines, salmon, things that are gonna have some iodine in it to help with your thyroid. And then for males, action helps to stimulate testosterone. But foods like cabbage, like cruciferous vegetables, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, those things are going to help up a man's testosterone. But really, testosterone is upped by doing things. Even in women, if you want to increase your testosterone, if you want more strength, then you need to like do action, like working out. Even a man, if he watches sports, he's gonna up his testosterone level. So
I was just gonna say, yeah, you know, watch a sport. Like sisters. I'm trying to get away from ladies and gentlemen. Sisters, watch a sport with your husband. Like I used to, you know, like one of the greatest memories I have of spending time with my father. He worked 2.5 jobs, so he would be home on Sundays. Basically, that was it. And sometimes he had to work. He had to watch the games and then go in for the rest of the night on Sundays. Some Sundays. So, but I remember watching games with him and just like sitting at his feet. And I don't remember his face because I would be on his side, like on the floor while he was in his little chair, whatever chair we'd have in whatever apartment we were in, and he would just be yelling at the screen. But I remember that. You know why? Because now I think about it, like basically, like as his testosterone level grew, and I was around him, like my testosterone level grew, and I was excited when he was excited. So like if he got excited, I got excited. His favorite team was my favorite team, yada yada yada, right? Just because, but then that was all I really needed. So like something like that, you know. But even something like that, sometimes even something like that, watching sport, that helps with like oxytocin too.
Yeah, bonding.
You know, it's a bonding. You know, we're bonding over the same thing. So even if you don't comprehend how the game is going or whatever, the fact that you're sitting there, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes your husband can be a little flaky because he's gonna be annoyed because he's gonna be like, you don't know nothing about this, I don't feel like teaching, blah blah. But if he sees you are actually trying to take interest in it, he'll be frustrated a little bit, but I bet you like he'll get an oxytocin boost. And then that means that he'll feel happy that you watched it with him. And then guess what'll happen next time? Like he'll be like, let's watch this again, and let's watch this again, and let's watch this again. And before you know it, like you'll be there. Or that's why some sisters, y'all put together that whole Super Bowl party and stuff. Y'all don't care about the teams, but what do you care about? Everybody's coming together. So you're like, okay, cool. Like I'll make the food, I'll do this, I'll do that. But like I said before, the time is getting a little up there, and I know we got to get up early.
Oh, thank you, Betty. Thank you, Sister Betty. Talking about the sea moss recipe is awesome.
You said, oh, that's why I feel better after eating seafood. Yeah, and certain seafoods, we wouldn't necessarily suggest, but yeah, definitely like the kelp and sea moss and Irish sea moss. There's a bunch of Irish sea moss all over Jamaica for some reason. But a lot of different types of different things out there from the sea, especially sea vegetation. Sea vegetation. We don't think about sea vegetation. We only think about vegetation on land, but I guess because it's easier to get. But a lot of vegetation that comes from the water is definitely great for you. But I think that's all I have.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to try and get a little bit of rest for tomorrow. And we got some stuff we got to do. Amma and her mom are going to help me out a little bit, I think, with something. So they got to get up earlier than usual, too. So we're going to go ahead and take our leave from you all. But thank you all for tuning in. We got this on YouTube. We'll probably put it on Patreon as well for everybody. And thank you. I know we still haven't sent out the emails for the classes yet, so just look out for those. It's not that they're not typed up at all, but they're not complete and ready to go. But matter of fact, I got to get information on your stuff too before I send it out, as far as to see what classes people are interested in taking. But I'll explain it to you more in a little bit. But we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Hopefully you guys can join us for the early rise of Bible study session. If you want more information on it, just reach out to us and let us know. At least get your email out to us so we can make sure you get added to the list. Other than that, thank y'all. We appreciate you. We honor the King, Queen, each and every one of you. As always, this has been both Amma and myself, Kofi. We're over Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time. Thank you, Brother Clem, by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, Yashta, that you all are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. Have a great night. That's so cute. We'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for the love. Yeah. Peace.